This is On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous. Page 1. Let me begin again. Dear Mom, I am writing to reach you, even if the word I put down is one word further from where you are. I am writing to go back to the time, at the rest stop in Virginia, where you stared, horror-struck, at the taxidermy buck hung over the soda machine by the restrooms, its antlers showing in your face, shadowing your face. In the car, you kept shaking your head. I don't understand why they would do that. Can't they see its corpse? A corpse should go away, not get stuck forever like that. I think now of that buck, how you stared into its black glass eyes and saw your reflection, your whole body, warped in that lifeless mirror. How it was not the grotesque mounting of a decapitated animal that shook you, but that the taxidermy embodied a death that wouldn't finish, a death that keeps dying as we walk past it to relieve ourselves. I am writing because they told me to never start a sentence with because. But I wasn't trying to make a sentence. I was trying to break free. Because freedom, I am told, is nothing but the distance between the hunter and its prey. Autumn. Somewhere over Michigan, a colony of monarch butterflies, numbering more than 15,000, are beginning their yearly migration south. In the span of 2 months, from September to November, they will move, one moonbeat at a time, from southern Canada and the United States to portions of central Mexico, where they will spend the winter. They perch among us, on windowsills and chain-link fences, coastlines still blurred from the just-hung weight of clothes, the hood of a faded blue Chevy, their wings folding slowly, as if being put away, before snapping once into flight. It only takes a single night of frost to kill off a generation. To live, then, is a matter of time, of timing. That time when I was 5 or 6, and, playing a prank, leapt out at you from behind the hallway door, shouting, "Boom!" You screamed, face raked and twisted, then burst into sobs, clutched your chest as you leaned against the door, gasping. I stood bewildered, my toy army helmet tilted on my head. I was an American boy, parroting what I saw on TV. I didn't know what the war was, that the war was still inside you, that there was a war to begin with, that once it enters you it never leaves, but merely echoes, a sound forming in the face of your own son. Boom. That time, in the 3rd grade, with the help of Mrs. Callahan, my ESL teacher, I read the first book that I loved, a children's book called Thunder Cake by Patricia Palacio? Palaco? In the story, when a girl and her grandmother spot a storm brewing on the green horizon, instead of shuttering the windows or nailing boards on the doors, they set out to bake a cake. I was unmoored by this act, its precarious yet bold refusal of common sense. As Mrs. Callahan stood behind me, her mouth at my ear, I was pulled deeper into the current of language. The story unfurled. Its storm rolled in as she spoke, then rolled in once more as I repeated the words. To bake a cake in the eye of the storm. To feed yourself sugar on the cusp of danger. The first time you hit me, I must have been 4. A hand, a flash, a reckoning. My mouth, a blaze of touch. The time I tried to teach you to read the way Mrs. Callahan taught me, my lips to your ear, my hands on yours, the words moving underneath the shadows we made. But that act, a son teaching his mother, reversed our hierarchies, and with it our identities, which, in this country, were already tenuous and tethered. After the stutors and false starts, the sentences warped or locked in on your throat. After the embarrassment of failure, you slammed the book shut. I don't need to read, you said. Your expression crunched and pushed away from the table. I can see. It's got me this far, hasn't it? Then, the time with the remote control. A bruised welt on my forearm. I would lie about to my teachers. I fell playing tag. That time, at 46, we had a sudden desire to color. Let's go to Walmart, you said, one morning. I need coloring books. For months you filled the space between your arms with all the shades you couldn't pronounce. Magenta, vermilion, marigold, pewter, juniper, cinnamon. Each day, for hours, you slumped over landscapes of farms, pastures, Paris, two horses on a windswept plain, the face of a girl with black hair and skin you left blank, left white. You hung them all over the house, which started to resemble an elementary school classroom. When I asked you, why coloring, why now? You put down the sapphire pencil and stared, dreamlike, at a half-finished garden. I just go away in it for a while, you said, but I feel everything, like I'm still here, in this room. The time you threw the box of Legos at my head, the hard wood dotted with blood. Have you ever made a scene, you said, filling a Thomas Kincaid house, and then put yourself inside it? Have you ever watched yourself from behind, going further and deeper into that landscape, away from you? How could I tell you that what you were describing was writing? How could I say that we, after all, are so close, the shadows of our hands, on two different pages, merging? I'm sorry, you said, bandaging the cut on my forehead. Grab your coat. I'll get you McDonald's. Head throbbing. I dipped chicken nuggets in ketchup as you watched. You have to get bigger and stronger, okay? I reread Roland Barthes' morning diary yesterday, the book he wrote each day for a year after his mother's death. I have known the body of my mother, he writes, sick and then dying. And that's where I stopped, where I decided to write you. You who are still alive. Those Saturdays at the end of the month when, if you had money left over after all the bills, we go to the mall. Some people dressed up to go to church or dinner parties. We dressed up to the nines to go to a commercial center off I-91. You would wake up early, spend an hour doing your makeup, put on your best sequined black dress, your one pair of gold hoop earrings, black lame shoes. Then you would kneel and smear a handful of pomade through my hair, comb it over. Seeing us there, a stranger couldn't tell that we bought our groceries at the local corner store on Franklin Avenue, where the doorway was littered with used food stamp receipts, where staples like milk and eggs cost 3 times more than they did in the suburbs, where the apples, wrinkled and bruised, lay in a cardboard box soaked at the bottom with pig's blood that had leaked from the crate of loose pork chops, the ice long melted. Let's get the fancy chocolates, you'd say, pointing to the Godiva chocolatier. We would get a small paper bag containing maybe 5 or 6 squares of chocolate we had picked at random. This was often all we bought at the mall. Then we'd walk, passing one back and forth until our fingers shone inky and sweet. This is how you enjoy life, you'd say, sucking your fingers, their pink nail polish chipped from a week of giving pedicures. The time with your fists shouting in the parking lot, the late sun etching your hair red. My arms shielding my head as your knuckles thudded around me. Those Saturdays, we'd stroll the corridors until, one by one, the shops pulled shut their steel gates. Then we'd make our way to the bus stop down the street, our breaths floating above us, the makeup drying on your face, our hands empty, except for our hands. Out my window this morning, just before the sunrise, a deer stood in the fog so dense and bright that the second one, not too far away, looked like the unfinished shadow of the first. You can color that in. You can call it the history of memory. Migration can be triggered by the angle of sunlight, indicating a change in season, temperature, plant life, and food supply. Female monarchs lay eggs along the route. Every history has more than one thread, each thread a story of division. The journey takes 4,830 miles, more than the length of this country. The monarchs that fly south will not make it back north. Each departure, then, is final. Only their children return. Only the future revisits the past. What is a country but a borderless sentence, a life? That time at the Chinese butcher, you pointed to the roasted pig hanging from its hook. The ribs are just like a person's after they're burned. You let out a clipped chuckle, then paused, took out your pocketbook. Your face pinched, and recounted our money. What is a country but a life sentence? The time with a gallon of milk, the jug bursting on my shoulder bone, then a steady white rain on the kitchen tiles. The time at Six Flags, when you rode the Superman roller coaster with me, because I was too scared to do it alone. How you threw up afterwards, your whole head in the garbage can. How in my screeching delight, I forgot to say thank you. The time I went to Goodwill and piled the cart with items that had a yellow tag, because on that day a yellow tag meant an additional 50% off. I pushed the cart and leapt on the black bar, gliding, feeling rich with our bounty of discarded treasures. It was your birthday. We were splurging. Do I look like a real American? You said, pressing a white dress to your length. It was slightly too formal for you to have any occasion to wear, yet casual enough to hold a possibility of use. A chance. I nodded, grinning. The cart was so full by then, I no longer saw what was ahead of me. The time with the kitchen knife, the one you picked up, then put down, shaking, saying quietly, "Get out, get out." And I ran out the door, down the back summer streets, until I forgot I was 10, until my heartbeat was all I could hear of myself. The time, in New York City, a week after cousin Vuong died in a car wreck. I stepped up onto the Uptown 2 train and saw his face, clear and round as the doors opened, looking right at me, alive. I gasped, but knew better, that it was only a man who resembled him. Still, it upended me to see what I'd thought I'd never see again. The features so exact, heavy jaw, open brow, his name lunged to the fore of my mouth before I caught it. Above ground, I sat on a hydrant and called you. "Ma, I saw him," I breathed. "Ma, I swear I saw him. I know it's stupid, but I saw Vuong on the train. I was having a panic attack, and you knew it. For a while you said nothing, then started to hum the melody to Happy Birthday. It was not my birthday, but it was the only song you knew in English, and you kept going. And I listened. The phone pressed so hard to my ear that hours later, a pink rectangle was still imprinted on my cheek. I'm 28 years old, 5 foot 4 inches tall, 112 pounds. I am handsome at exactly 3 angles and deadly from everywhere else. I am writing you from inside a body that used to be yours, which is to say, I am writing as a son. If we are lucky, the end of the sentence is where we might begin. If we are lucky, something is passed on, another alphabet written, in the blood, sinew, and neuron, ancestors charging their kin with the silent propulsion to fly south, to turn toward the place in the narrative no one was meant to outlast. The time, at the nail salon, I overheard you consoling a customer over her recent loss. While you painted her nails, she spoke, between tears. "I lost my baby, my little girl, Julie. I can't believe it. She was my strongest, my oldest." You nodded, eyes sober behind your mask. "It's okay. It's okay," you said in English. "Don't cry. You're Julie," you went on. "How did she die?" "Cancer," the lady said. "And in the backyard, too. She died right there in the backyard, damn it." You put down her hand, took off your mask. "Cancer." You leaned forward. "My mom, too. She died from cancer." The room went quiet. Your coworkers shifted in their seats. "But what happened in the backyard? Why she died there?" The woman wiped her eyes. "That's where she lives. Julie's my horse." You nodded, put on your mask, and got back to painting your nails. After the woman left, you flung the mask across the room. "A fucking horse?" you said in Vietnamese. "Holy shit. I was ready to go to her daughter's grave with flowers." For the rest of the day, while you worked on one hand or another, you would look up and shout, "It was a fucking horse!" And we'd all laugh. The time, at 13, when I finally said stop, your hand in the air, my cheekbones stinging from the first blow. "Stop, Ma. Quit it. Please." I looked at you hard, the way I had learned, by them, to look into the eyes of my bullies. You turned away, and, saying nothing, Put on your brown wool coat and walk to the store. I'm getting eggs, you said over your shoulder, as if nothing had happened. But we both knew you'd never hit me again. Monarchs who survived the migration passed this message down to their children. The memory of family members lost from the initial winter was woven into their genes. When does a war end? When can I say your name and have it mean only your name and not what you left behind? The time I woke into an ink blue hour, my head, no, the house filled with soft music, my feet on cold hardwood. I walked to your room. Your bed was empty. Ma? I said, still as a cut flower over the music. It was Chopin, and it was coming from the closet. The door etched in reddish light, like the entrance to a place on fire. I sat outside it, listening to the overture, and, underneath that, your steady breathing. I don't know how long I was there, but at one point I went back to the bed, pulled the covers over my chin until it stopped. Not the song, but my shaking. Ma, I said again, to no one. Come back. Come back out. You once told me that the human eye is God's loneliest creation. How so much of the world passes through the pupil, and still it holds nothing. The eye, alone in its socket, doesn't even know there's another one, just like it, an inch away, just as hungry, as empty. Opening the front door to the first snowfall of my life, you whispered, look. The time, while pruning a basket of green beans over the sink, you said, out of nowhere, I'm not a monster, I'm a mother. What do we mean when we say survivor? Maybe a survivor is the last one to come home, the final monarch that lands on a branch already weighted with ghosts. The morning closed in around us. I put down the book. The heads of green beans went on snapping. They thunked in the steel sink like fingers. You're not a monster, I said, but I lied. What I really wanted to say was that a monster is not such a terrible thing to be. From the Latin root, monstrum, a divine messenger of catastrophe, then adapted by the old French to mean an animal of myriad origins. Centaur, griffin, satyr. To be a monster is to be a hybrid signal, a lighthouse, both shelter and warning at once. I read that parents suffering from PTSD are more likely to hit their children. Perhaps there is a monstrous origin to it, after all. Perhaps to lay hands on your child is to prepare him for war. To say possessing a heartbeat is never as simple as the heart's task of saying yes, yes, yes to the body. I don't know. What I do know is that back at Goodwill you handed me the white dress, your eyes glazed and wide. Can you read this? You said, and tell me if it's fireproof? I searched the hem, studied the print on the tag, and not yet able to read myself, said, yeah. Said it anyway. Yeah. I lied, holding the dress up to your chin. It's fireproof. Days later, a neighborhood boy, riding on his bike, would see me wearing the very dress. I had put it on thinking I would look more like you, in the front yard while you were at work. At recess the next day, the kids would call me Freak, Fairy. I would learn, much later, that those words were also iterations of monster. Sometimes I imagine the monarchs fleeing, not winter, but the napalm clouds of your childhood in Vietnam. I imagine them flying from the blaze blasts unscathed, their tiny black and red wings jittering like debris that kept bowing for thousands of miles across the sky, so that looking up, you can no longer fathom the explosion they came from. Only a family of butterflies floating in clean, cool air. The wings finally, after so many conflagrations, fireproof. That's so good to know, baby. You started off, stone-faced, over my shoulder, the dress held to your chest. That's so good. You're a mother, Ma. You're also a monster. But so am I. Which is why I can't turn away from you. Which is why I've taken God's loneliest creation and put you inside it. Look.